Our guest today is Crystal Rasmussen, and I am super stoked for this conversation. So we're gonna dive straight in. Like I say to my chat GPT, I'm like, let's dive in James Bond style. Let's go straight into the action because I think a lot of times there's too much buildup and it's like, all right, just get to the point. So we're gonna do this. So what pulled you in to the kind of healing work that you do? And what was the moment that you knew this this ends with me?
That can be a really long question.
Oh, I'm here for it. Wanna hear all of it.
I have always been drawn to the metaphysical and the spiritual aspects of life. And I've always wanted to know the truth, the core root of what's underneath everything.
Oh,
I want to know why certain things are happening within people's lives. And there was a point in my life years ago, I had terrible relationships, just very unhealthy, very codependent, not, yeah, I just had really bad relationships. And I was a single mom, just trying to survive, just trying to do the thing. And at one point in time, I wanted to awaken more of my spiritual gifts so that I didn't have so I could see people for who they truly are is really, when I look back, that was really why. So that I could see the root of things happening and the whys, but also so I didn't get hurt again. So I didn't get caught up in all of the same unhealthy dynamics of relationships that I'd experienced my whole life. And so I started this journey of really looking at chakras and intuition and healing. And I remember there was a moment in time where my grandmother that had passed away when I was 3 years old. My grandmothers have always been very present with me in my life. And there was a point in time after one breakup where she was guided me to an energy healer. And it was get in your car, drive here, walk into the store. And I like what am I doing? I feel like I'm crazy because I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me, right? And I did that. And so I began working with an energy healer in my really, really small town because things were so limited there. So I wasn't aware of all the beautiful things that existed in the world. And so I started working with an energy healer and really just started diving more deeply into healing and the spiritual aspects and intuition and awakening your gifts. And I did that for years. And one thing always just led to the next thing, as it does. And, I would notice shifts and changes and things happening. And at the time, I was designing graphics for people. That was my business. I actually was designing graphics for the ranching community. Okay. Like people in their purebred operations. And I worked for a national ranch magazine. And so I was doing that and it was great, but it wasn't as fulfilling as I wanted life to be. I wanted to be helping people. And so I kept looking and I kept studying and nothing ever quite felt right. It was all wonderful. It was always great, but there was always that next layer, right? That next thing. And one day out of the blue, I don't even know what I Googled. I couldn't tell you. I know prior I was considering going back to school for counseling, thinking, okay, maybe that's how I'm going to help society. Right. But then the thought of going to school for that many years later it was too overwhelming. Again, I was a single mom, and it was this ebb and flow and feast and famine and just trying to do the things. And so one day I was Googling and soul therapy school dropped in on my computer. I don't know how it got there. It was something that I had Googled 100 times before, I'm sure. And I start reading this text, this copy around getting to the truth of what's happening. And in the copy, it spoke of bringing your mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and soul bodies into alignment, back into wholeness. That there's a reason you have anxiety. It's not just you have anxiety. There's many layers and levels as to why you have that. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is amazing because at the time, like I was anxious, I was depressed, everything scared me. Like I was confused. I felt lost. I wanted my purpose, all the things that we go through in life. And I was reading this copy, and I could feel it in my body, how it like resonated. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is the thing. I need to work with this woman. And in true like hiding fashion, I stayed in the background and liked all the social media posts, and like kept going back to the copy and rereading it and like, oh my gosh. But I was also super scared of like taking that next step too, because I knew things would change and like I didn't know what that looked like. And she actually reached out to me and she's like, would you like to get on a call? And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, like she sees me. And I got on a call with her and I don't even remember what we spoke of. I just remember my body wanted to cry. Like there was that everything resonated so much. I could feel what was going to shift and change, not only for me, but for my kids, because, we were living in the way we were living, survival mode, day to day, just getting through the days. And when she told me the investment for the class, I froze because I'm a single mom running my graphic design business and not knowing how I was gonna do it, but I also knew that I needed to work with her. I needed that no matter what it looked like. And so I actually committed, I committed. I'm like, no matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes, I'm gonna study with this woman and I'm gonna enter into soul therapy school. And within, gosh, probably 6 weeks, the doors just opened, things happened and I was able to enter in. So the founder of Soul Therapy School reached out and she connected with me and she's like, Crystal, would you like to get on a call? And of course, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like she sees me, like I'm not hiding in the background, like it brought up a lot of nerves and excitement at the same time.
Yeah.
And so I got on a call with her and I don't even know what was said during the call. I just know that I felt things within my body. And there was this moment, like my body wanted to cry. Not because I was sad, but because there was a shift of like hope somehow that there could be a change, not only for me, but for my kids.
Yeah.
Because that was, I was really like, we were in survival mode. And so I knew I needed to work with her. I had no idea what that was going to look like because when she told me the investment, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a single mom. I can barely pay my bills. I went into all the stories and all the excuses and all the fears, and it wouldn't leave. Those moments when you have that intuition and those guidance, that wisdom from within your heart that just keeps tapping you and tapping you and tapping you. And so I made a decision and I committed fully to myself, which was terrifying at the time. But I was like, I need this. I want this. I have no idea what it's going to look like. I don't know what's going to transpire. I have no idea how I'm going to do it because the investment itself was like, it was more than a car at the time, you know? For me, it was really challenging, but I made that commitment within myself and I said, no matter how long it takes, no matter what I need to do, this is what I'm going to do. And in probably 6 weeks, I had the deposit to enroll into soul therapy school. Yeah. It flowed. Doors just opened because I had personally made that commitment of no matter what it takes, this is what I'm going to do. And I remember being just in awe of how quickly and how easily it happened. And so I was enrolled in soul therapy school and it was amazing and life changing. And I loved all of the things about it. And I noticed shifts and changes. And partway through that, she opened up the 13 Mystical Wisdom Teachings apprenticeship training. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my jam, because it was all about awakening your spiritual gifts. And by that time, I had had enough experience with her to know she's a master of parallel reality, just how gifted and wise and loving she is, all around freedom and courage and not living life to the norm. And I'm like, I need that. Like, I need this. And so, yeah, 13 Mystical Wisdom Teachings opened up, and I was like, yep, sign me up. Again, I had no idea what it was. I just knew wanted to awaken more of my gifts. And the 13 mystical wisdom teachings changed so much for me in the fact that my 15-year-old son, at the time I was taking the 13 mystical wisdom teachings, came up to me. He gave me a hug and he kissed me on the head and he looked at me and he said, "Thank you, Mom, for the work you're doing." And I like broke.
Aw.
Exactly. Because I didn't realize he had no idea what I was doing, but he felt the shifts within the family dynamics itself. And other things changed. My relationship with my parents changed. My relationship with myself, with my body changed. I felt more confident. I felt more connected to just me, to the earth, to life itself. And then 13 Mystical Wisdom Teachings ends, and she has this generational healing certification training. And we're all sitting around us women that had gone through the 13 Mystical Wisdom Teachings going, generational healing, what is this? What are we doing here? Because back then, this is back in 2015, the people weren't talking about, you know, healing generations of stuff unless you were in an indigenous community, right? So we're sitting around, we're like, what is this? And I remember as she's speaking, I'm like, oh my gosh. Of course, we carry the unhealed traumas of our ancestors. Of course, patterns and wounds and belief systems get passed down. Of course, like, oh my gosh. And suddenly I'm like, oh, I'm not broken. Like, I remember thinking that I'm not broken. There's so much more happening and so much more going on. And it finally made sense as to why I was the way I was, you know? And I received a generational healing session and she facilitated. And I remember, again, I have no idea what's happening, what it is, but my ancestor was like showing me her life and the experience she had in her life and how it impacted me. And I sat up and I felt so much lighter and so much shifted. And I was like, oh my gosh, why is not everybody doing this? Because, like, to be aware of and to heal, not only for ourselves, but our ancestors and our children, those things that we carry. So I felt amazing. And I went down to the river and I sat and I had so much clarity in my life, so much clarity in the choices I was making or had made, the reasons why my children, my daughter specifically, was making certain choices, why my, parents were doing certain things. Like, it all made sense. I had all this clarity. I could see so much beyond what I had before in every area of my life. And I was just like feeling amazing. And the next day, this guy looks at me. She says, "Crystal, you're going to facilitate generational healing." And I was like, what? Like, you had a conversation with my ancestor and you expect me to do that? Like, uh, no, I have no idea what I'm doing. What are you talking about? Again, massive fear, massive anxiety, like wanted to run away and bolt out the door. And she sat there with me and she's like, "Crystal, it's okay. I've got you." Which, okay, well, I guess here we go. And I went through the opening sequence that we learn at the training, and suddenly I was in a multidimensional framework. And the women in the class faded into the background, and my teacher was there, and an ancestor of the client that was receiving generational healing was standing in front of me. And he started sharing his story with me of his life on earth and what he had experienced and the pain that he had suffered that the woman receiving generational healing was carrying, and it was impacting her. And at the completion of that session, the ancestor himself was so incredibly grateful for the healing, it left me in tears. I mean, you felt unconditional love like you've never felt before. My heart just opened and I'm like crying. It was one of the most humbling, rewarding experiences I ever had. And in that moment, I knew I'd found my purpose because I could see the ripple effect that takes place when we're healing our ancestors. And I saw the shifts, personally within myself and within my own family, just going through the 13 mystical wisdom teachings and receiving generational healing, just how much things had shifted. So it wasn't like this is what I'm going to go do. It was really my grandmother's. I know that now. It was my grandmother's paving the way
Yeah.
to like, here, this is what we need, and this is what we need for you and for the family and the lineage.
And I feel you on so many, like, there's so many levels that I feel you there. because as I've gone on my own healing journey, the more you heal, the more you realize how far back it goes.
Yeah.
With I mean, even with like what with what you do with generational healing and epigenetics and just things that have been transferred from generation to generation. And so, what had started mine is like it stops here. I don't want it to go farther. And there will be some things that I know will be passed on that I just can't see yet, right? And that
Mhm.
my children will absolutely show me at some point in time, I'm
They
sure.
will because they are our greatest teachers.
But I feel you on the calling part of it too, because even though, I'm a sales mentor, a business mentor, that wasn't my intention. It was the thing that kept surfacing and coming back and punching me in the face like, you have to do this thing. Like it just wouldn't go away. So I love that you shared that because sometimes it's just the thing that you're guided to.
Yeah.
It's not always the thing that you're I'm passionate about this, like I'd rather talk about horses all day long, but here we are, so
Yep.
but I would love to know what generational patterns do you see, or maybe they're nervous system patterns, maybe they're habitual self-sabotaging patterns. Like what do you see most often in your clients, maybe specifically like the high achieving, the high performers, maybe some of your clients that may own businesses, but and maybe it's all over the board, but what do you see the most?
That there's a lot. So what I can share is that every generational healing is very different.
Mm,
It's very different in what's healed and what the ancestor shares. And with that said, for women specifically, there's a lot in the inability to communicate, that not having a voice,
mm,
right? Wanting to share, but not knowing how, like, have been suppressed, for generations upon generations, right? A lot of people I notice, especially high performing, go get 'em type ladies, like, we have this drive within us, and so I will try to, like, force things, but
yeah,
you know, it's the mind because like, I've learned over the years how much I come from the mind, from the mental, "This is what it needs to look like. This is what needs to happen," and it's learning, I'm not always necessarily in charge, and so coming back into the heart and leading from that space is really something that I've noticed too, like, for people. But yeah, there's so much grief and so much pain, and even, 4 generations back, they lived very differently
very
than
different.
how we live today. Very differently, there's so those struggles that people keep coming up against, that's what I see, is that those okay, no matter what I'm doing, like, it's not working, and so that's when people come and see
Yeah,
and receive generational healing so that there can be a shift and a change.
yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of piggybacking off the mindset piece, because a lot of people do focus on that strategy, like just push through it, just do the thing, like just go harder, like if I just do this, it'll fix it.
Mhm.
But this type of work, and even how I practice, like in business, like, yes, there's a strategic side of things, but there's an entire different level beneath that, the emotional side, the energetic side, the ancestral side, the heart centered space, right? So why do you think that this work is the type of work that changes everything? And how have you seen that change things for people?
I say that because not only have I experienced it myself,
Mhm.
but I witnessed it. So in that moment, I'm like, this is my purpose. Everything went out the window of what I thought life was. And I like committed to facilitating and teaching and sharing about generational healing. And over the years, my gosh, the ripple effect that takes place when people receive generational healing, they notice differences within their children. They notice differences within their parents, their siblings, themselves. There's so many. One woman, I'll share with her story because she's like, please share my story with everybody. Okay, please share. So she came to a demonstration and was like, I need to receive generational healing because she knew like she had stuff in her family, right? And she came in and she looks at me and she's like, I know the ancestors always choose what is to be healed because that's how generational healing works. She says, but have anxiety and I've had my anxiety forever and I'm on medication and like I still have multiple panic attacks every single day. So it affected her relationship with her husband, her relationship with her parents. She didn't go out like she wanted to, affected her finances and her health and just day-to-day living, right? And she came in and she's like, I'd love to be able to release some of that. And so she lied down on the massage table, open to receiving generational healing, and her ancestor came forward and she shared about her life, about how there was alcoholism within her family and how she always felt like she needed to pick it up and take care of everybody and fix it all. And there was much more to it, but there was always this fear in being on guard. And once the generational healing session was complete, Amber sat up and she looks at me and she says, my mind is so quiet. It's so peaceful. She says, my mind is never quiet and peaceful. She's like, I don't know what to do with it. Like she was so uncomfortable because there were no thoughts, right? And she's like, this is amazing. And what she shared following the session was that that's exactly my story. That's exactly how I feel. That's how I think. That's what I want in life. It's what I dream of, all these things. I spoke to her a week after her session, and she's like, Crystal, I don't have any anxiety. And I'm like, oh, that's amazing. That's awesome. She says, and she was coming from multiple panic attacks every day, right? And so she's like, this is amazing. And 2.5 months afterwards, she reached out and I'm off all my anxiety meds and I haven't had an anxiety attack. And 2 years later, she posted on social media and she's like, if anyone knows me, you know how much anxiety controlled my life. And she says, for the last 2 years, I've been anxiety free because of receiving generational healing. So I hear those types of stories all the time. Physical pain is gone. I found my voice. I have better boundaries. I have a better relationship with my daughter. We used to fight all the time, and now we have this great relationship. Physical pain is gone. They feel more empowered. They find their purpose. They know what they're seeking. It just so much makes sense for them. They feel so validated in how they felt. And then they get to like choose to release it, right?
Um,
There's just so many different stories, but I've watched just such amazing things happen. And this one I'll share. I was facilitating a demo and this family came in, a mom, her two adult boys, and her husband. And she walks in with them and the ancestors. I always allow the ancestors to choose who's to receive generational healing. And the mother was chosen. And I connected in and her ancestor communicated her story. His story I don't remember right now, but shared their life on earth. And at the end of the session, this woman sits up and she's crying and she says, oh my gosh, just ignore the tears. That was the most amazing thing ever. She's raving and raving. She's like, you have to experience it because unless you experience it, you don't understand it. And she's just going on and on about, she's like, I know why I feel this way. And she looks and she points at one of her adult sons and she says, obviously, I'm not the only one who received this healing. And he was gracious enough to share with the group. He says, yeah, you began facilitating generational healing and suddenly I went somewhere else. He says, I don't know what happened, but then all this emotion washed over me and then it was gone as soon as the session was complete. And he was grinning from ear to ear and he was sharing just how happy he was and how like he felt such a huge shift within him. So it's beautiful to witness in real time that way.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love this. And you had mentioned like the demos and the conventions. So I would love for you to share like how people find you and how you educate them on the process of generational healing because I know for a lot of folks it can be a new concept, a new modality of healing. I mean even just like energy healing and things like that are still a little new age. I mean to me like I've been practicing a lot of those things for a while. I went and did like Reiki certifications, Reiki 1, Reiki 2, all of that. But this is even beyond those things, right? And so you may have to do kind of an education process.
Yeah.
So, can you walk us through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do travel a lot. I do travel to different expos and holistic fairs, and I facilitate demonstrations and I speak. And of course, I facilitate and teach. Generational healing is an ancient healing technique from the Earth's ancestors. And so the founder of generational healing, the founder of Soul Therapy School, she gifted, very gifted. And so has always had a relationship with the earth and the ancestors of the earth. And the unseen energies that impact us every single day. And in 2008, she was told to go to Guatemala and spend 40 days in the jungle. And she did, not knowing what was going to transpire, not knowing, like, no agenda, right? Like, this is what I'm being told to do. And I'm trusting that this is what I need to do, not knowing what's going to transpire. And so she went, she spent 40 days in the jungle doing with in ceremony and connecting with the energies there and the ancestors of the earth and ancient civilizations and doing what was asked of her, following the guidance. And she was told to return over a period of 4 years. And at the end, she had completed a ceremony in a Maya pyramid. The ancestors of the earth came forward and they gave her a vision and a message for humanity that in order for humanity and the earth to evolve, that the ancestors themselves need healing. And so they asked her, if she would be willing to take that on. And she said, yes, of course, absolutely, for the evolution of Gaia herself. She took that into her own practice for years. And then I was part of that first group that went through the training, right? But there's so much that we carry that we don't even realize. It's these unseen energies within us that impact us. They impact our thoughts and how we think. They impact our belief systems, our limitations, our fears, our emotions. So we literally carry our ancestors' emotional pain within our DNA. And that in fact, that impacts us, that affects us. Those unhealed traumas, they will impact your physical body, causing physical ailments or pain, your spiritual body. It will affect the choices you make, your relationships, your experiences in life. So much of what we, again, struggle with, whether it's our thoughts, our belief systems, our fears, sadness, grief, anger, can actually become from an ancestor's unhealed trauma. And with generational healing, your ancestor receives that healing, and that density then is released from you so that it no longer gets passed down within the lineage.
Yeah. It's really interesting to see how much stuff we actually carry, and we internalize it too. We think this is just my stuff, but in all reality, I mean, even on a day-to-day basis, you can walk by somebody, brush against next them, and you may be all of a sudden now carrying all their stuff now too, right? And so
Absolutely.
you don't know it until you become aware of it, and then once you're aware of it, it's like once you see it, you can't unsee it type
No,
of thing
you cannot. No, you cannot. Yeah, so we do. Energy affects us every single day.
all the time. And I think it also, to kind of bring this full circle, like into like your business and how you talk to people and, how, you likely work with people and enrollments and the whole process, people feel that, and they know when you're being true and authentic. People can feel those things, right? Those are all energies, those
Absolutely.
are all emotions. And how you leave people too, that is something, right? There is that saying, like, people won't remember what you say, but they'll remember how they make you feel. You had a perfect example of that in the beginning, right? With the woman that you worked with, you will never, I mean, not saying that you'll never remember the conversation, but you won't remember word for word what it was that she had said to you, but you
Mhm,
will forever remember how she made you feel and the emotional, energetic impact that she had on you in that moment. And those are the types of things that we go through every single day. And our ancestors went through every single day, good, bad, and ugly. And if
mhm.
they don't heal the bad things, the quote unquote negative, I won't,
Yep.
go into like calling things negative and positive and whatnot.
Yeah.
If they don't heal those things, they are then passed on.
Yes, they are.
And
Yes.
those are the things that we are talking about healing.
Mhm.
Ah, and so do you find that it can be challenging at times or not. Maybe it's relatively easy, but when you're talking to people about their healing process or getting them to work with you in some capacity, I mean, is it relatively easy? Is it complex? Is it like walk me through kind of your experience with that?
Yeah, many people come to work with me due to word of mouth
Yeah.
because they've heard from someone else their experience
Mhm.
at the shift that changed it. When I'm facilitating at, say, the expos, many people, they walk by and they feel the energy. They feel the energy, and their ancestors, whether they know it or not, are tapping them on the shoulder, saying, "This is what you need." You'll
Hey,
watch.
stop by this booth.
That's exactly what it is. Watch. You can watch. People will just automatically be drawn, and people will return. They'll walk all the way around, and then they'll come back, and they're like, "It's so peaceful over here." They're like, "I just want to hang out here." It's their ancestors, poking them on the
Like, that's my
shoulder,
design.
saying, "I need healing, please." Um,
Uh,
Relatively, like, it is relatively easy when I'm out and about meeting people in person. It's online is a different story for me, but that's just how I operate.
Yeah,
And
I can imagine online it's much more challenging. And I'm also kind of in a similar boat, which is why, I still have such a personalized process. I like to do voice messages and live events and personalized outreach because I think in this day and age, so much can be lost in translation between bots and text messages and
yeah,
everybody and their mom is doing those types of things that they take the humanness out, the relationship out of it. And there's so much transformation that happens in that initial connection. And that's all part of the process, if you ask me. So I think that's maybe I differ a little bit than some of the others. And I think that that's maybe where you shine as well versus some maybe of the other, energy healers, energy workers, out there, is having that personalized approach still. And you're one of the few that I know that still, goes to a convention, still does speaking events, still does, hands on. A lot
yeah.
of people are getting away from that when honestly the world needs more of it.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. We need more connection,
Yeah.
and social media gives us the illusion of connection,
Yeah.
illusion of connection, but we're not connected.
We need the touch. I know it sounds
Yeah.
like I just got goosebumps, and that's one of the reasons why I'm such a big believer in retreats and getting together and like, yes, Zoom is fine. Yes, social media is fine. But you're right. It gives us the illusion. But really though, even though we're here having this conversation and yes, we're energetically connected, but
Mm,
we're still in a 2D format. It would be
yeah.
much better if we were sitting right next to each other.
Would be amazing, but it is. We need more connection,
Oh,
and that's actually one of the reasons why I enrolled with you. The connection, because you bring the humanness in. Yes, you have structures, which and systems, which is what I need to build because I'm a one woman show, right? You have the connections and the humanness. You teach how to be in relationship, how to serve, not from a mindset or how you've been taught, but serving from your heart, which is very different than most people in how they share. And, I still remember the call I showed up and with you, like, I'm a bawling mess because it feels like my life is falling apart, right? And then due to these things that we think where we need to perform and be perfect and do all the things, and you just sat there holding space. You didn't try to fix it, you didn't make it wrong, and there was literally no judgment. And because I'm super sensitive to the energies, right? And so in that moment, it was so profound for me. And in that moment, in my like crying on the bathroom floor kind of moment with you,
I've had those moments too. So
like things began to shift internally because I was witnessed and held in a space of just love, and so being in sales mama has helped to remind me when all the rest of the world is saying do it this way, do it that way, be on social media, do the what can you get, the push the mindset, like all these different things. Working with you is so different, and like I get to come home to me and operate from my truth versus all of the other noise around me.
yes, I love that you said that because Social media is just one of the many ways
Yes, it is.
that you can build a business. But the people on social media will have you believing that it is the only way for you to build a
Mhm.
business.
Yes, it is.
And the only reason they do that is so that they can fill their own pockets. It's
Yeah,
it's a total strategy and it works really well for them. But at what cost?
yeah,
What cost?
exactly.
The cost of everybody else's sanity and mental health and their own businesses, their own families, and that's not fair to them.
No, no, it's not.
So, doing this work differently, we do have, the emotional side, we do have the strategic side. I do try to have, a little bit more of a heart-centered approach, but I can still be direct at times.
But
But
that's also needed. Like this mama bear, like, whoa, wait a minute.
but I love hard. I love hard though. So,
Yeah, that's great. And it's direct is needed because in this world, so many people aren't.
yes, there's a lot of people that beat around the bush and I feel like I am not one of them. I love sandwich people. I will tell you what you are doing well, but I will also tell you what I feel like needs to be said in the moment. And sometimes that's hard and it's not the things that I typically want to say, but it's the things that come to me in the moment, right? So, with that though, what do you feel like has really shifted maybe or changed really in the way that maybe you show up in your leadership, in your business, in your sales, in your offers, or maybe even how you practice generational healing?
Yeah, for me, and I've been taught this in the past, but it's really remembering that it's not about me.
Yeah.
So that, like, I would say that's probably the number one thing that I shifted. I'm here to be of service and it's not about me. Right. And to just serve from that heart space. And regardless of the rejections, it doesn't mean it's something about me. Right. So that's changed my perspective of like, I get to do me and be me and value me and love me and in all the capacities. And I get to show up and be of service, and I have a full training right now, which I have not had a full training for way too far way too long, right? And right now I have a full training and it's amazing. And women are like, their hearts are opening and things are shifting and transforming. And, they're telling me, yeah, like my sister's noticing differences within herself as I'm here at this training. You know, so, so working with you has allowed me to step more into my worth, I would say, and
Oh,
own my gifts.
yeah, I love it. And I love that you have a full training because really the work that you do, it is the ripple effect. And it's the type of work that I feel like we need more of in the world because it is. It's the type of work that you do the hard work, you do the inner work. And that in and of itself is what's going to heal the world.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
feel I can't tell you how excited I am that you have a full training.
I'm so excited. It's amazing. Like, it's really been amazing, and I thank you for sitting with me through all the things.
All the things.
All the things.
I'm here for
Oh.
all of it. The good, bad, the ugly. I'm here for all of it.
So many aren't, right? That's been my experience. But you are. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I'm here for all of it. So, well, I got a couple more questions for you, and then I would love to hear. I would love for you to share how folks can get a hold of you, how they can learn more about generational healing, and how perhaps they can have a session with you, or even attend one of your trainings, or how they can, maybe even get a hold of your event calendar or something along
Yeah,
those lines. So, what would you say to the woman who has the gifts, has all the potential, but maybe she's still stuck, or maybe she's still playing small. Maybe she's scared to be seen, scared to really step into her full highest potential.
give yourself permission to say yes to you, because so much of the time we're looking for outside permission, right? Or we're taking care of all the things, but give yourself permission to show up and commit for you because you're worth it. You really are.
Anything else you want to leave our listeners with today?
If you want to start showing up for yourself, then join Sales Mama with Sasha.
There is zero hiding in sales, mama.
There's zero hiding. It is, you really get to you do get to show up and you have the support there, which is huge. And it's an amazing community.
I
It
really
really
so.
is. Yeah.
Well, tell us how we can get a hold of you. What's the best way to contact you? Tell us where you're hanging out these days.
I am currently hanging out in Montana right now. Came back home to the wide open spaces, big blue sky. But you can find me on my website, crystalrasmussen.com. And I facilitate distance generational healing and advanced harmonics generational healing. And there's all sorts of different options to connect and work together.
I love it. I'll put all of your contact info in the show notes. All of your direct links will be there. So for anybody who does want to get in touch with Crystal, she does phenomenal work. I think you will love her. And yeah, if you want to see her in person, head on over into Montana. She's you're kind of all bouncing around that whole
Yeah.
area doing
Bouncing around.
lots of conventions. So
Yeah,
if you're in that local area, I'm sure you'll see her at one of the holistic fairs up there.
yep.
Thank you, Crystal, for being here today. This
Thanks,
has
Sausha.
been wonderful, wonderful. So thank you, thank you.